Part 1. The House on Old Blackwater. The first scream came just after 2 in the morning. Eve Harper sat upright in bed before she even knew why, heart hammering, half believing she'd dreamed it. For a long second, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs and the whisper of rain on the conservatory glass. Then another sound, feet pounding pavement. She slid out of bed, tugging her cardigan around her shoulders. "Liam," she whispered. He stirred, groggy. "What is it?" "Someone's outside." She crossed to the window and peeled back the curtain. The cul-de-sac of Cedar Hollow Lane lay still under amber streetlights, except for the house across the road. The for sale sign out front leaned at an angle, and the front door stood wide open, dark as a wound. Then came movement. Tom and Chloe, the picture-perfect couple who'd just moved out 2 weeks ago, stumbling down their drive in their pajamas. Chloe's hair stuck to her face, her white nightdress soaked through. Tom's bare feet slapped the tarmac, leaving a trail that glistened under the lamps. Eve blinked, not just glistened. Shined. Dark red. "Liam," she hissed. "It's Tom and Chloe." He was already beside her, pulling the curtain wider. "What the hell?" Chloe turned, looking straight up toward their window. For a moment, Eve swore the girl was about to call for help. Then Chloe's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her jaw simply hung slack as if her voice had been cut away. Tom grabbed her wrist, dragging her toward their car. Blood dripped from his chest, soaking through his shirt. He fumbled for the keys, dropped them, screamed. The sound was raw, animal. By the time Liam had run downstairs and yanked open their own front door, the couple's car fishtailed out of the drive, back tires spraying gravel, vanishing down the hill toward the main road. Rain began to fall again, gentle, steady, washing their footprints into black puddles. By morning, police tape crossed the Harper's view of number 14. Blue lights flickered in the drizzle. 2 forensics vans stood beside the curb. Eve wrapped her hands around a mug of coffee, staring through the kitchen blinds as white-suited officers moved in and out. "They said there were signs of a break-in," Liam said behind her, reading from his phone. "But not human ones." Eve frowned. "What does that even mean?" He turned the screen toward her, an online post already circulating on a local forum. "Richmond couple flee haunted house, police find remains under floorboards." "That's ridiculous," Eve muttered, setting her mug down. Across the street, a small crowd had gathered behind the cordon, curious neighbors with umbrellas and the weary posture of people desperate for excitement. Among them, Eve spotted Sophie Bell, mid-30s, anxious, clutching a raincoat around her shoulders. Sophie had lived 2 doors down for years, the kind who brought casserole when your pipes burst and gossip when your day didn't need it. Sophie's eyes met Eve's. For a moment, she hesitated, then she waved her over. Eve sighed. "She's going to have a theory." Liam looked up from his laptop. "Let her. Everyone's got one." Eve crossed the road through drizzle that smelled faintly metallic. Sophie's face was pale, her eyes rimmed red as though she hadn't slept. "You saw them last night, didn't you?" she whispered. Eve nodded slowly. "They ran." "I don't know from what." Sophie's gaze flicked to the house. The front door had been removed, yellow tape fluttering like torn skin. "It wasn't a what," she said. "It was a who. Or, what's left of him." Eve frowned. "Who are you talking about?" Sophie lowered her voice. "The Dver." Eve blinked. "Sorry?" "The Dver," Sophie repeated, trembling. "They say he owned all this land before Richmond was built, when it was still Blackwater Ranch. Back in the 1870s. He was a horse breeder. A cruel one. Used the stable hands like slaves. Then one winter, his wife, Rebecca, and 7 of the children who worked there went missing. Burned, they said. People found their teeth in the ashes." Eve swallowed. "That's an urban legend, Sophie." Sophie shook her head. "No. My grandfather told me." The Dver was caught weeks later, covered in soot, laughing. he said, "The land's mine now, all of it." When they hanged him, the rope snapped twice. The rain intensified, pattering against their umbrellas. "You're saying a Victorian murderer came back to kill Tom and Chloe?" Eve asked flatly. "I'm saying," Sophie whispered, "the Dver never left. He built his house where the barn was. And when they built over it, when this whole suburb went up, they didn't dig deep enough. His cellar's still under there." Eve opened her mouth, then paused. From the house across the street, one of the forensics officers emerged carrying a sealed bag. Inside was a fragment of bone, small, pale, unmistakably human. That night, rain drummed harder against the roof. The neighborhood seemed quieter than usual, no cars, no televisions, just wind through wet hedges. Eve sat at the dining table, laptop open to a Victorian registry archive. Search, Blackwater Ranch Murders, 1872. There wasn't much. A single scanned headline from the Richmond Gazette. Horses slaughtered, children missing, ranch hand hanged. Below, an old photograph of a lean man in a wide-brimmed hat. His eyes were shadowed, but his mouth, a smile stretched too far. Thomas Dver, age unknown. Hanged March 12, 1872. Eve leaned closer. The edges of the photo had warped with age, blurring into darkness, but she could make out something carved into the wooden post behind him. A 5-point star. Burned, not painted. "Eve," Liam called from the living room. "You should see this." She closed the laptop and joined him. The news had already made the evening broadcast, aerial footage of number 14 surrounded by police tape, the headline. "Partial skeletal remains discovered beneath floor, possible 19th century origin." Liam turned down the volume. "They think the house was built over an old cellar." Eve's heart stuttered. "What kind of cellar?" "Root cellar, maybe. They are bringing ground-penetrating scanners tomorrow." Outside, thunder rolled, soft, distant. For a brief second, the house lights dimmed. Eve crossed to the front window. The street looked empty except for a delivery moped idling under the rain, its headlight glowing white through the downpour. The driver sat motionless, helmet tilted toward the old house. "Someone's delivering food," she murmured. "At midnight?" The driver didn't move. Then, slowly, the bike light flicked off. The next morning, the Harpers woke to find their garden gate open. Mud tracked the walkway, drying into reddish streaks that led to their front door and stopped there. No footprints leaving. Liam crouched, touching the marks with his finger. "Not mud," he murmured. "Ash." Eve looked up. Across the street, the house at number 14 stood silent. Police had finished their work, tape gone, windows boarded. But through a crack between the boards, something faintly glowed. She felt the hum before she heard it, a vibration through the soles of her feet, like standing near a live transformer. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Liam nodded slowly. "Like, the air's breathing." That afternoon, Sophie knocked on their door. She looked worse, pale, shaking, a red patch visible beneath her collar where her skin blistered like a burn. "I went back," she said, voice quivering. "I had to. I left the property sale contract in the kitchen drawer when I was helping Chloe pack last month." "Sophie, you shouldn't," Eve began. "I just wanted to grab the papers and go." Sophie's eyes glistened. But it was there. In the mirror. "I saw it behind me." Eve froze. "What did you see?" Sophie pressed a trembling hand against her back, against a long tear in her blouse. Dried blood stained the fabric. It said, "This land is mine. All of it." Eve felt her stomach turn. "Sophie, who?" "It touched me," Sophie whispered. "Cold as stone. And it smelled like smoke." Outside, thunder rolled again. The sky had gone strange, too dark for 3 in the afternoon, clouds hanging low and bruised. Liam flicked on the lights. The bulbs glowed weak, trembling in their sockets. Then the phone on the counter lit up. "New order, Deliveroo. Pick up, Curry Kingdom." Destination, 14 Cedar Hollow Lane. The sound of the moped engine returned from somewhere outside, low, steady, patient. Eve and Liam looked at each other. Who would? Before either could answer, the screen pulsed again. Status, out for delivery. Eve walked to the window, every step heavy. The moped sat across the street, its light flicking on through the rain. A man in a black jacket stepped off, holding a paper bag darkened by moisture. He looked around, confused. Then he knocked on the boarded door. From inside the house, something knocked back. Once. Twice. Then the boards shifted. Part 2, the cellar door. The man on the moped, Raj Patel, blinked through rain-smeared visor glass. The GPS arrow on his phone spun lazy circles, glitching between house numbers. 14 Cedar Hollow, he muttered. Bloody app. The paper bag in his hand sagged, curry oil bleeding through the cardboard. His phone pinged again. Deliver to back entrance. He frowned. What back entrance? There was only one path, a narrow side gate leading into blackness behind the house. Mate, I'm not walking through there for a tip, he said to no one, but the rain was answer enough. It poured harder, forcing him forward. He pushed the gate open. Hinges shrieked. Inside the backyard, grass grew waist-high, matted and slick. The boarded windows stared down like blind eyes. The old bricks of the wall were scorched near the foundation. Raj hesitated at the back step. The house smelled wrong, not rot, but iron, like the air before lightning. He raised his voice. Delivery for, Mr. or Mrs. Thomas? No reply. The paper bag twitched in his hand, faintly, like something inside had moved. He almost laughed it off. Mouse, yeah? Just a mouse. Then the doorknob turned on its own. A soft click. Warm air spilled out, carrying the smell of ash and candle wax. Raj's phone flashed delivered before he could stop it. Across the street, Eve Harper pressed her forehead to the glass. Liam, she whispered. Is inside. Liam joined her, eyes wide. Christ, call the police. They won't come. They just sealed that place off yesterday. The rain distorted everything, the windows, the figure of Raj stepping through the door and vanishing. For a moment, the glow inside the house pulsed orange, like firelight. Then, a flash. The glass of the front window blew outward in a cloud of rain and smoke. Eve screamed. Something hit the inside of the glass hard enough to crack it, a dark shape, sprawling, human. Then it fell back out of sight. The front door slammed shut. They were already halfway across the street before reason could stop them. Eve, stay behind me. Liam shouted, raising his arm to shield her from shards of glass glittering across the pavement. The rain hissed against the boards. The air felt thick, metallic, humming. Liam reached for the doorknob, then screamed. Smoke rose instantly from his hand. The metal sizzled. A 5-point burn bloomed black on his palm, glowing like an ember. Jesus Christ! Eve pulled him back, trying to pry his fingers open. The burn spread outward, tracing through the veins of his wrist like wildfire under skin. The wood around the doorknob trembled, flexing like muscle. Liam, move! He stumbled backward, but too late. The door split open from the inside, sucking him forward. A rush of air, no, vacuum, tore through the hallway, dragging him toward the darkness. Eve, he screamed, his voice swallowed by wind. She lunged, grabbed his wrist. The burn mark seared her skin instantly, smell of singed flesh filling the air. His face was pale, eyes wild. Don't let go. The pull grew stronger, the floorboards cracking under their feet, the world bending inward. Eve threw her weight back, digging her heels into the wet concrete. Liam! Then his body jerked, halfway through the threshold, and vanished like smoke sucked into a vent. Only the rope of his belt buckle clattered to the floor. Eve fell hard onto the steps, rain washing her burned hand. Her lungs burned, her heartbeat was the only sound she could hear. Then, faintly, beneath it, the hum. Low, steady, like an animal breathing under the ground. The front hall was dark when she entered. The smell of iron and soil was stronger now. She called his name once, softly. The walls whispered back. The hallway seemed longer than it should have been, stretching toward the back of the house. Mud streaked across the tiles. Handprints, small, child-sized, smeared along the wallpaper. The kitchen light flickered once, revealing the delivery bag torn open on the counter. Curry had spilled everywhere, mixed with something darker, blood, fresh and glistening. The floor creaked under her weight. The sound came from below. A whisper followed, a woman's voice, close to her ear. Underneath. Eve froze. The voice was soft, almost kind. She turned slowly toward the pantry. The door there stood half open, a draft of cold air spilling out. Inside, stairs. Narrow, wooden, leading down into blackness. She took one trembling breath. Liam? No answer, but the hum grew louder. The stairs groaned with each step. The deeper she went, the more the air changed, wet, heavy, tasting of rust. Her flashlight flickered, throwing weak cones of light across stone walls. At the bottom, a door. Iron hinges. Chains rusted to orange dust. Someone had carved into the wood long ago, rough, jagged letters. Dver. Eve touched the latch. It was cold, not dead cold, breathing cold, like something that had never stopped moving. She pushed. The door opened inward with a moan that seemed to echo miles down. A narrow tunnel stretched ahead, clay walls slick and pulsing faintly as if veins ran through them. Candles lined the floor, flames unsteady though no wind blew. Every few feet, symbols had been carved into the dirt, 5-point stars, crude, burnt black. Eve moved slowly, light trembling in her hands. The passage opened into a wide earthen chamber. The smell hit first, sweet rot and burnt fat. Bones. Hundreds, maybe thousands. They covered the walls, arranged in lattices, skulls pressed into the clay like ornaments. And in the center, a pit of glowing embers, red light throbbing upward like a heartbeat. The hum came from inside it, deep, living, hungry. A sound behind her, movement. She spun, flashlight shaking. Raj Patel was there. Or what was left of him. He hung half suspended in the wall, his torso fused with the clay, skin stretched like wax. His eyes flicked toward her, lips quivering. Help, help me. She stumbled backward. Oh my God. The wall, it breathes, he whispered. It's alive. The wall pulsed around him, clay tightening. Bones shifted beneath the surface. A hand, skeletal, long, reached out from the dirt beside him, pressing against his chest. Raj screamed. The wall pulled him in. One blink, and he was gone. Only a wet sound remained. Eve fell to her knees, sobbing, shaking uncontrollably. Then, a noise deeper in the pit. Hooves. Slow, deliberate, heavy. She looked up. Something stepped into view on the far side of the chamber, tall, broad-shouldered, shape shimmering in the red light. A figure in a long coat, dusted with ash. Its head cast a shadow over its face, but its eyes burned like coals. And when it smiled, its teeth were long, too long, equine, slick and yellow. The Dver tilted its head, voice grinding like broken wood. This land is mine. Eve staggered backward. Where's my husband? Taken, the thing said simply. Paid his tithe. Where is he? The Dver leaned close. The smell of smoke poured off it. Below. With the rest. It raised a gloved hand and pointed to the pit. From the embers, hands began to rise, small, pale, many. Child-sized fingers clawing upward, gripping the edge. Eve screamed, running toward the stairs, but the tunnel behind her had collapsed. The only way out was down. The hum filled everything now, a steady drone that made her teeth ache. The pit glowed brighter, the ground trembling beneath her knees. She could see shapes inside, faces writhing in the firelight, voices whispering through the smoke. Eve. She froze. It was Liam's voice. Eve, help me. Liam. I'm here. The hand that reached up was blackened, skin burned away, bones gleaming wet in the light. She reached toward him. And the Dver's shadow fell over her. Don't touch what's mine. He reached down, gripping her shoulder with a strength that felt ancient. Flesh burned under his palm, smoke rising. You came onto my land, he said softly. Now you stay. Eve's scream tore through the chamber. Above ground, rain pounded harder. Lightning flashed over the roofs of Cedar Hollow Lane. The boarded windows of number 14 rattled once, then fell still. Across the street, Sophie Bell stood in her doorway, bleeding through her blouse, watching the old house tremble in silence. Somewhere deep below, something opened, the sound like breath, drawn inward. The hum carried through the ground, faint but unmistakable. And then, finally, the whisper, clear as a voice just behind her ear. This land is mine. All of it. Part 3, Dver's fire. The air inside the earth had gone hot. Eve Harper awoke in darkness, her throat full of soot, the smell of iron and blood clinging to her skin. For a moment, she didn't remember who she was, only that her body hurt, and that something was breathing near her face. She rolled onto her side. A shape crouched beside her, small, fragile. A girl, no more than 7, barefoot, eyes wide and colorless. Her skin glowed faintly like wax catching fire. The girl smiled without sound, then lifted a finger to her lips. Shush, the child whispered, voice echoing in Eve's skull. He listens. Eve's breath shuddered. Where's Liam? The girl didn't answer. She simply turned and pointed toward the pit. The glow down there was stronger now, red turning to white, flickering as if a storm raged under the ground. The hum had deepened into a sound too big for hearing, shaking every nerve in her teeth. Eve crawled toward the edge. Liam lay half buried among bones and ash, his face streaked black, fingers twisted and broken. His chest rose shallowly, but he was alive. Liam, she cried, sliding down the incline. Her knees tore against the rock, but she didn't stop. She reached him, grabbed his shoulders. His eyes fluttered open, glazed and full of light. Eve, you shouldn't, he coughed, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. He's coming back. The hum ceased, cut clean, like a switch thrown. For a heartbeat, the silence was total. Then a boot stepped onto stone. The Dver emerged from the smoke, taller now, clearer, his outline sharpened by fire. The brim of his hat dripped molten tar, beneath it, his face flickered between man and something else. Horse teeth clicked wetly when he smiled. There it is, he rasped. The trespasser's love. Eve backed away, dragging Liam by the shoulders. You killed those children, she spat. You killed her. The Dver cocked his head. Killed, he said softly, amused. No. I kept. This land remembers. It remembers what I gave it, the blood, the fire, the scream. His boots crunched bone as he walked. You think houses are built on soil? They're built on hunger. He stopped at the pit's edge. Beneath him, shapes moved, women and children, faces upturned, skin translucent like smoke under glass. You hear them, he said. They sing for me. The hum started again, quieter this time, layered with whispering voices. Line up. Go to bed. Close your eyes. Eve gritted her teeth. You think this land belongs to you? The Dver raised his head. It is me. He spread his arms. The walls pulsed in answer, clay cracking open, revealing layers of bone beneath like the rings of an ancient tree. Faces pressed outward from the soil, mouths open in silent cries. Eve lifted a rusted knife from beside a burned beam. Then I'll cut you out of it. The Dver chuckled, the sound dry as kindling catching. You think the land bleeds for you, girl? He struck first, a sweep of motion like wind. She dove aside, the blade of his hand cutting a groove into the stone where she'd been. Sparks leapt. His shadow bent toward her like smoke given shape. Eve slashed with the knife, catching his coat. The blade hissed where it touched him, the smell of burning flesh and tar. He staggered back, eyes flaring ember red. Blood for blood, he snarled. He lunged again. She ducked, grabbed a jagged bone from the ground, and swung. It shattered across his jaw. He barely flinched. He grabbed her by the throat and lifted her off her feet. "You came here on your own," he whispered, voice too calm. "And now?" He stopped. Because the girl had returned. She stood at the base of the pit, flanked by 6 others, all faintly glowing, eyes full of flame. Their hair drifted weightless, like they were underwater. "Rebecca," the Dver growled. "You should have stayed buried." The woman stepped forward then, taller than the rest, dress torn, skin the color of smoke. Her eyes burned gold, and her mouth curved into something between sorrow and wrath. "You buried us," she said. "Now we burn for ourselves." The Dver's hand loosened on Eve's throat. She dropped to her knees, gasping. Rebecca raised her arm, and the air itself seemed to ignite. The embers in the pit roared up, spiraling into a column of white fire. The 7 children stepped into it one by one, their forms breaking into ash that danced upward like sparks. The Dver screamed, a deep, inhuman sound. The fire twisted toward him, wrapping his limbs. His coat caught, his hat fell into the pit and disintegrated. Eve crawled toward Liam, pulling him back as the chamber filled with light. The Dver tried to rise. "This is my land," he roared. "Mine." Rebecca's voice answered, soft but final. "Then burn with it." The flames erupted. The entire hollow shook, bones shattering, walls collapsing inward. Fire spilled through cracks in the ground like blood. The Dver flailed, his form breaking apart, skin peeling back to black smoke, red eyes dissolving into the inferno. And then, silence again. Eve woke to wind. Cool, clean wind. She coughed, pulling herself upright. The chamber was gone, just rubble, stone, ash. Morning light filtered through the cracks above. Liam lay beside her, breathing shallow but steady. The burn on his hand had faded to a scar, a black star, still faintly warm. She climbed toward the surface, pulling him behind her. When they emerged, the world was burning. Number 14 Cedar Hollow Lane was engulfed in blue flame. The heat shimmered across the street. The air stank of ozone and blood. Sophie Bell stood in the yard, face streaked with soot, clutching a can of petrol. Her blouse was torn, her back still bleeding. She looked at Eve, eyes wide, wild. "It's over," she said hoarsely. "I lit the gas. I made sure." Eve staggered toward her. "The cellar. It's sealed." Sophie's voice cracked. "It's gone. He's gone." The 3 of them stood there, watching the house collapse inward. The roof caved, sending sparks spiraling into the gray morning sky. Then, through the rising heat, figures appeared, faint, flickering, standing in the flames. Rebecca and the 7 children. Their faces were peaceful now. They smiled, wide, bright, almost human again. And then they began to laugh. It wasn't cruel, or joyful. It was release. The fire burned higher, swallowing them whole. Eve turned away, pulling Liam close. "Come on," she whispered. "We're leaving." They stumbled down the street. The ground trembled underfoot, faint but growing. Every window along the route quivered. Cracks raced through the asphalt. Somewhere below, the hum began again, deeper now, stretching across the entire neighborhood. Sophie looked back. Oh God. The street lamps flickered. The air vibrated like the moment before thunder. Beneath the noise, a sound, metallic, rhythmic, like a phone ping. Eve's burned hand trembled in her pocket. Her phone screen glowed, glitching between notifications. New order, delivery. Pickup, Curry Kingdom. Destination, Blackwater Ranch. Deliver now. She dropped the phone. It landed screen up on the wet street. The glow pulsed once more, syncing with the hum. Behind them, the row of houses began to buckle, roofs splitting, brick crumbling, the soil itself opening in slow, yawning cracks. From deep within, red light spilled upward, bathing the street in hellish dawn. Liam turned, voice trembling. What do we do? Eve stared at the horizon. Run. They did. Through smoke and falling rain and the faint echo of laughter that wasn't laughter anymore. Behind them, the last of the suburb sank into fire. Hours later, the sky over Richmond was still red. Fire crews battled the inferno, news drones circling overhead. No one could explain the cause. No one could find a source. In the footage replayed across every screen, something small and almost invisible flickered inside the flames, a shape, tall, wide-brimmed hat, eyes like coals. And if you listened closely, between the crackle of burning timber and the roar of wind, you could hear a whisper under the static. This land is mine. Days passed. Eve sat in a hospital room beside Liam's bed. His hand lay bandaged, the black star still faintly visible beneath the